I'm Black Ice, and I believe you can become a better developer. And in this video, you'll be learning about UV unwrapping. We'll be going over what it is and how to do it. Now, what is UV unwrapping? Now, when you have a 3D model, you have to texture it through a 2D texture. And through UV unwrapping, you can translate this face information into a 2D plane. You do this through selecting seams that will cut the faces. Now, a good example is imagining a shirt. If you cut all the seams on it and lay it out, that's basically what UV unwrapping is. Now, every texture needs seams, and good seams will make the texture the same size and won't distort it. And most of the time, you should place seams in the breaks of a model. For example, seams on a shirt or sharp edges. Now, a general rule is to try to hide your UVs. This way, you don't have any seams stretching across an open face of the model, because this can lead to visible gaps or edges in a texture. Now, before we begin, always make sure to apply the scale to your object, because if you have multiple objects, this can lead to uneven UVs, which is not good. Anyways, let's get into my workflow for UV unwrapping. Okay, so I have this model here, and I want to UV unwrap it. So what I usually start with is to go into the UV editing tab, select new. You can rename this to whatever you want. I'll just rename this to UV grid. And it's usually generated blank by default, so you want to set it to UV grid. Then just click new image, and then here it is. Then you go into the shading tab, select your model, import an image texture, find that UV grid we just saved, plug it into the base color, and now we have a UV grid, but as you can probably tell, it's slightly messed up. So head back to the layout tab, go into material view, and now it's time to UV unwrap this. What I always tend to do is just start by marking seams on all of the sharp faces. So basically anything that has a 90-degree angle, I'll put a seam there. And I also tend to change it to different textures so I can see the red UV lines. A fast way you can do this is go to select sharp edges, crank this up a lot, put it to like 89, and then just mark seam. There we go. We unwrap angle based. You can already tell it's slightly better. If you look right here, you can see it's distorted, which is exactly what you don't want. So what we need to do, would add a seam like right here, unselect that, mark seam. And I would mark a seam right here too. Okay, now let's unwrap again. Okay, nice. It's basically unwrapped already. Let's go to the UV editing tab and see our UVs. You can highlight everything to see it better. Now it's filling up a decent amount of the grid, but there's still a lot of gaps. And if you're working with like a 1K texture for performance, you really want to fill this up as much as you can. So I might go around adding a couple more seams so it can be a tighter unwrap. And usually with curves, it has a whole lot of empty space. So sometimes you'll want to unwrap. Now, only do this if you really have to, because you can easily get these ugly texture areas where you can clearly see the line, and that's pretty bad because if you don't correctly texture it, it'll look really ugly and it will probably just ruin the complete texture. So only do that if you really have to. Oh, there's still a weird slice right here. So a good way to find things is just highlight it here, move it around, and you can see it moving here. Now I know that I need to edit this. You find out where, I think right there. Since there's no edge right here that I can select to add a seam, I'll just create my own by pressing J and then marking that seam there. That way it splits it up a little better. Now the smaller the grid, the more high quality the texture will be. That's why I'm just going in, selecting some extra edges to add seams to, so the unwrap will be tighter. But again, you don't need to do this if you're working with like 2K or 4K textures. It's better to have cleaner seams where it's not blatantly going across the model. But since I work mainly with 1K textures, I'm just doing this to optimize it further. Now this is a pretty good UV. It's pretty compact. If you look here, there's no distortion. And now it's basically ready to be taken into Substance Painter and to texture it, or to texture it in whatever program you use. Okay, tutorial over. If you found it helpful, then like and subscribe. I post development and modeling guides every couple of days. If you have any questions, then comment, and I'll try to answer as quick as I can. Goodbye now.